this is very important to me. This is because we have a lot of Americans in our audience, and I'm not allowed because of certain laws and requirements. I'm not allowed to talk about who I voted for, who I did not vote for, and why. Okay, because we're a 501(c)(3). I just want to make that clear. Um, what I do want to talk about is some of the reactions I'm seeing to this election. And this is very important because I personally have been feeling like I live in a different reality uh than other people. And this is kind of wild to me because I've been feeling like I live in a different reality than a lot of MAGA people for a long time because they have the big lie. They spread all this stuff about the election, all these other conspiracies. I'm like, I don't know what to do about all these people that believe this, like QAnon stuff, like in my country. Like, I feel like I live in a different reality than them. And then seeing the reactions to the election made me feel like, oh my God, like, I thought I was living in a different reality on the mega side of things, but now I feel like I'm living in a different reality from these, like, I don't even know what you call, like, as progressive Democrats. I don't know, just people like coming completely untethered all over the internet. Like, it's actually very concerning. And for people that are maybe new to this channel and don't know about my history, like when Trump won the first time, when I was a young adult, I literally became radicalized into Antifa. And then that was my life for like a year and a half to 2 years. And so, I've had people react in my family to this election with like this very, very deep, like emotional reaction that I can't relate to. And then they seem surprised when I'm not like struck the same way that they are. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, why is that? And part of it is I think I was one of those people that became fully untethered from reality during when he was first elected to office. Like, I legitimately believed that we were going into legitimate fascism in our country, and I acted accordingly. And then 4 years went by, and some stuff happened, some stuff didn't happen, some good things happened, some bad things happened, blah, 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 and life moved on, and the country still lived, and our institutions still exist, and we had 2 more democratic elections since then, and so I'm so struck by the immense distress I am seeing like everywhere. And part of me like rationalizes it because I'm like, oh, a lot of these people I'm seeing like completely freak out are like very young people. So maybe this is their first time like voting in a federal election. Or maybe they're more new to the politics, or maybe they were really young when Trump had his first term in office, and so they don't remember things as much, blah, 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 blah. Um, so maybe I'm thinking, okay, maybe they're going through what I went through during the first time. Okay, I can kind of like cognitively rationalize that, blah, blah, blah. But then I'm seeing like adults, like 15, 20 years older than me, like become completely untethered as if we didn't all live through the last 4 years as like very politically conscious adults. I'm so struck by it. And it's I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is, but I cannot feel that same delusion of I don't know if it's delusion or that same like internal feeling of threat the way that I did before. I in the past few days since the election, I've had this very weird feeling that I've never had before, which is like this non-attachment and like energized. 'Cause I was completely unattached to who won the election. And then I woke up feeling energized, and I realized why I feel energized. And I feel energized because now that I know who's in office, I know what to act on, okay? Like, I do a very hard job because I struggle with a lot of anxiety to one, not make myself suffer twice, which is what a lot of these people are doing. They're really stressing with anxiety over things that haven't happened yet. So they're making themselves suffer twice, maybe 50 times. And two, really just focus on the things that I can control. I live in a state with a super majority. I basically live under one party rule. All my electoral votes are going for Kamala anyways. Like I have no like my vote doesn't matter. Like I have no control over that. But now that I know who's in office and I know I've always known what policies I care about, I can act accordingly. I can act accordingly. For example, now that Trump's in office, I'm very concerned about our support for Ukraine. So I've started to think about what can I do with my local and national Ukrainian community to help, support their interests. Boom, I'm energized because I know how to act accordingly now. And I think this is really important for people to think about because I've seen like this mass panic. And I'm thinking, if you think that your side is so correct, if you think that your ideas really do bring the most prosperity for the most people, if you think that your ideology and your beliefs are really the best way for the more people to live the best lives, you know what time it is now that the election is over? It's time to stand up, ball up your metaphorical fist, and prove it. It is time to stand up and prove your mettle. That's what time it is, okay? So I don't understand this panic. Like I've always known within myself, I mean, like sometimes my opinions change, but right now I feel very solid within the values that I like and I fight for, right? And I've so to me, the turnout of the election didn't matter because I always know what I'm going to act upon, right? Like that's actually not going to change very much like what I do. I'm going to move forward and I'm going to keep doing it. So now that I know who's my parent for the next 4 years, who has custody for the next 4 years, I'm like, okay, now I know how I can stand up and act accordingly. I think my ideas bring forward betterment for most people. Time for me to stand up and prove it. Let's get energized. Let's do this. There's one thing that I really want to say to people. I have been losing my mind over people pissing themselves, going, I know this many millions of Americans hated women. The women. I've never knew that this many Americans were this homophobic. I never knew that this many Americans hated trans people. And I'm like, oh my God, you raging narcissist. It is not about you. It is not about you. It is not about you. The issues that from exit polls that people voted on are so clearly not about you. Get your head out of your ass. Like, it's so narcissistic. You know what? I'm going to say something a little bit spicy. People don't hate you, they hate your narcissism. That's what they hate. They hate how your narcissism is weaponized in a victim complex that you inflict upon everyone. And you know why this is really damaging? Because this whole worldview of problematizing everything actually legitimately teaches people to be more psychologically fragile and less resilient. To be less resilient in the face of adversity. And that is so psychologically damaging. The whole problem with kind of a critically conscious mindset is that it takes the locus of control outside of yourself and makes it external. You have only an external locus of control. That is very psychologically damaging. And it actually, to be honest, makes you very vulnerable to indoctrination. This is actually part of a system of thought reform, is to take the locus of control from internal to external. Like I it's very disturbing for me to see this all over the place. And the last thing I want to say, and this is important to me. I have been seeing people literally saying that they need to flee the United States and seek asylum outside of the United States because they are gay or trans. I want to tell you guys that you are a shame and have no basis for such a claim. You are so out of pocket, it's actually disrespectful. It is so incredibly disrespectful. If you say that, if you believe that, that means that you believe that there is not a single district, city, state, region within the entirety of the United States, contiguous or not, where you can find safety and freedom from persecution. If you legitimately believe that, I do not know what to tell you. What do you think Trump is going to do? Send fucking stormtroopers on the Castro district to go tear down the pride flags over the Castro theater? Fuck no. Like, it's not going to happen. You're telling me that there is not a single place in the United States where you can find safety and security. That is just patently borderline a break from reality and psychosis. It's not true. And so I wanted to say that anyone that is legitimately pushing that narrative is pushing really harmful rhetoric that is teaching people to be more distressed and more fearful and pushing people into patterns of thought that lead to self-deletion. And it's really, really dangerous and it's extremely irresponsible. It is extremely irresponsible. I understand that maybe moving to a more urban liberal area or maybe moving to a more gay accepting state is like a privilege and maybe not that easy for some people. That doesn't mean that the easier option is to seek asylum in a different country. You're out of your mind, okay? Like, it's just, it's not true. I have worked with atheists who are women who are suffering extreme physical abuse from their family, extreme persecution where they're trying to force marriage. And you know what they had to do? I had to help them flee the entire nation because the entire nation structurally will put them back into the hands of the family that is trying to honor kill them, including the domestic violence system. It will always put them back in the hands of their guardians and chaperones. You where not a single place within the entire borders of that nation are safe for those women trying to escape that system of abuse. That is what we're talking about here. That is the level of persecution that we're talking about here. You don't have that. You don't have that. You don't need to pretend that you have it that bad for your distress and suffering to be validated. I understand that you're upset. I understand that you might be experiencing some suffering. You do not need to pretend to be suffering that bad for your pain and distress to be valid. Okay? You don't need to make it up. If you're really making it up to that degree, that actually makes me think that you're completely insincere. And you're looking to be like something that you're not. I know so many people in our community who would give anything to be in like a deep red place in the United States as like an openly very gender non-conforming like gay person because they know that they would have some rights here. I saw a girl like being like basically saying that she's gonna be shot dead in the street because she's a lesbian. I'm sorry, you're not. What do you think happened overnight? You're living around the same neighbors you've been living around this whole time. I it really, really, really um it that has been driving me crazy because it's so irresponsible. And so to that end, I would actually like to give because we talk about all this stuff. Words are one thing, but let's actually talk about what can be done, some action that we can take. And so I would like to take a moment very quickly to share something. We have a member of our community. Her name is Dolly, and she's a mod. Many of you people know Dolly. She also runs our Arabic channel. Well, there are a member of our Atheist Republic community that is basically serving as a sponsorship for Dolly to come to the United States to seek safety through the Welcome Corps program. And I've been working with the organizers of her Welcome Corps sponsorship group for a very long time, and they are raising money for Dolly to come to the United States through the Welcome Corps program. And so, if you want to help someone who actually does need asylum because they're LGBT, because they're an atheist, Dolly escaped a forced marriage. You know, she's one of those people that actually does need that help. She's not making it up. She actually shares our values. She wants freedom for people in her community. She fights against anti-Semitism in the Arab community. She fights against homophobia and transphobia in the Arab community. She would give anything to live in a place like America, including Texas, okay, which is where she would end up through this program. As much as people want to fearmonger, this is where Dolly would love to go, okay? So, I will post a link in the live chat if you guys want to support the fundraiser for her Welcome Corps program. I've been, like I said, I've been working very closely with the organizers of this group. So I know about their organizing and the background and stuff. Actually, Atheist Republic was going to potentially be the sponsorship of this fundraiser, but because of the decisions that they wanted to make as a group, they decided not to do that, and I fully supported them. So that's just something I wanted to give a shout out to because I think it's relevant given what I'm seeing.
By the way, Dolly is somebody who, even though she herself is being, dealing with a lot of crap, and her own situation is not figured out, she's still wherever she is. Sometimes she's not available for work because she works with us, because she goes and participates in risky protests, for fighting for, liberal values against, Russian takeover, or basically she is still an active participant in protests. So she is not just a an activist, not just behind the keyboard, but also in the streets. Just wanted to let you guys know that.
Yeah.
That's why I admire her so much.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
thank you for sharing this.
yeah,
Yeah.
I just think it's important to like really put a perspective on these things. Um
Yeah.
yeah. And yeah, I love that girl. So,
Can I mention something about the election? I
mhm.
actually, the fact that so many people are saying, like, oh my God, democracy is gone because Trump has won, or fascism is going to take over, there's a silver lining to this. Because I look at this, I look at all the outrage and all the butthurt, and I feel like, so look at what people consider a threat to democracy. Like, even January 6th, we were like, oh my God, this was a coup attempt, right? I'm not endorsing it, but I'm looking at January 6th, and I'm like, look at this. To me, this shows how powerful liberal institutions have become. That this is what we consider a threat to democracy these days. Because if you just go back 100 years, which is not that much time in our 12,000-year history of mankind, or even if you go back 50 years, things that we called threat to democracy were on a whole different level, right? Like, even United States had threats to democracy that were world-ending events. Not just democracy ending. We were worried about world-ending events, and then we have now a bunch of guys marching to the Capitol with zero weapons and basically not having the potential of doing anything. And we're like, oh my God, this is a threat to democracy. This is great. If this is the version of threats to democracy, then democracy has won. If this is the threat that we're dealing with, right? I mean, at least in the West, it has won. So, and again, now people like Sam Harris, for example, promised us that this is going to be, now that Trump is going to won, this is going to be, I know, devastating, a threat to our way of life and democracy, and people are promising that fascism is going to come take over. So I think we're going to see, like last time they said Trump won, it was going to become the takeover of fascism. And again, not that I agree with everything the man does, but it wasn't a takeover of fascism. This time they're like, okay, the first time it didn't happen, This time he's now has more in his arsenal, and this time it's going to happen. So we'll see if this time fascism doesn't take over again. Then to me this shows that liberal institutions are more reliable than people think. That this is not like fascism. Like we're not in an era where democracy and liberal values could be threatened in the same way that we had in between the 1930s till the 1950s. That's what I think.
Or you know what, if there is a threat, okay, time to stand up and prove that it's strong enough to take it. Like let's freaking go. Let's freaking go, buddy. Also, side note, one thing I want to say, and then we really do need to get to the news, is
Yes.
we are going to see like this critically conscious, woke, toxic bullshit double down. We are going to see some Democrats that actually want to win try to do a rebrand. But then we are going to see the actual ideologues double down, because that's the only thing that they know how to do. It's the only thing they know how to do. So we're going to see them double down. So I think we're actually going to see like more bullshit, because we're kind of I realized I'm watching like people go through the 5 stages of grief. But yeah, we're gonna see a lot of illiberal shit that we do not like just double down.
Yeah.
So we need to be prepared for that.
I mean, they have been humiliated though a lot. I don't know if they're gonna. So last time wokeism Trumpism was a blessing to wokeism, right? Because they loved it. They made themselves more relevant. This time around, it might happen or it might not, because they have been humiliated. Like they have turned into a joke. So I don't know if they're going to be able to have a comeback because of Trump, but we'll see. We'll see. It's unpredictable.
I don't know if they will be able to gain like mass popularity and awareness like they once did, but they themselves within their own circle are going to double down.
Oh, I'm look at this. Somebody Amikai donated.
Oh, thank you so much.
That's very sweet. Thank you, guys.
Yeah. So you know what? I'm like, okay, I got my marching orders. I know what I value. Time for me to stand up and work towards it now that I know who has custody for the next 4 years.